Imagine this for a moment. You walk into a room, no words come out of your mouth, and yet, before you've even spoken, people already feel it. Something about your presence unsettles them. It's not aggression, it's not arrogance, it's depth. A silence that is heavy, not empty. A silence that carries storms. You notice how eyes turn. Some people look intrigued, but most grow uncomfortable. They don't understand why your quiet feels so loud. They don't know what to do with someone whose very existence refuses to shrink. So they label you. Too emotional, too intense, too sensitive, too much. But let me ask you this. What if they're wrong? What if this too muchness they try to erase is not your flaw, but your truth? What if your intensity is nothing more than clarity? What if your sensitivity is not fragility, but radar, an antenna tuned to the hidden frequencies of life? Stay with me, because in the next few minutes, we will journey together into the heart of sensitivity, the philosophy of depth, and the Stoic wisdom that reframes what society calls a curse as the very path to awakening. And before we go deeper, I want you to know something. You are not watching this video by accident. If these words resonate, if you've ever been told you feel too much, it means this message is for you. Subscribe, not just to another channel, but to a community that thinks and feels as you do. A place where your fire is not too much, but finally, enough. From the very beginning, we are trained to shrink. Think about childhood. A child cries in frustration, and instead of being comforted, they're told, "Stop being dramatic." A child asks difficult questions, and they're silenced with, "Stop overthinking." A child expresses raw joy or sadness, and they're warned, "Calm down, be normal." So the child learns a painful lesson that authenticity is dangerous, that showing who you truly are comes with punishment, ridicule, rejection, disapproval. And so, little by little, we begin to wear masks. We laugh politely when our soul is screaming. We nod in agreement when our body is begging us to resist. We dilute our truth into something palatable, something acceptable, something safe. The world doesn't reward honesty, it rewards conformity. It doesn't honor depth, it honors performance. And so we trade authenticity for inclusion, we trade our fire for acceptance. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Do you see the wisdom in that? Epictetus understood something most of us forget. If you want to live authentically, you must accept that some people will not understand you. They may laugh, they may reject you, they may even despise you. But here is the tragedy. Most of us do the opposite. Instead of being willing to disappoint others, we choose to disappoint ourselves. We betray our own nature just to be accepted by the crowd. And what is the cost of this betrayal? Silent grief. The kind of sorrow that doesn't scream, but lingers quietly, eating you from within. It's the grief of never being fully seen. The loneliness of always performing. Let me ask you, how many times have you walked away from a conversation and thought, "They didn't really hear me"? You were present in the room, you spoke words, but somehow your truth was invisible. If you've ever felt that ache, the ache of being unseen, unheard, misunderstood, leave a comment below. You will be surprised how many carry the same invisible wound. And in writing it down, you may give someone else permission to finally say, "Me too." This is the paradox of our culture. We live in an age of hyperconnection, messages flying across the globe in seconds, millions of voices shouting online, and yet true connection, soul to soul, is rare. We are more networked, yet more invisible than ever. We are more social, yet lonelier than ever. We are more connected, yet more unseen than ever. Why? Because connection without authenticity is just noise. And most of what the world rewards is noise. The moment you dare to strip off the mask and reveal your true depth, you will face resistance. People are threatened by what they don't understand. They are disturbed by what they cannot categorize. And depth, true emotional, philosophical, psychological depth, cannot be neatly packaged. But here's the truth. The mask may protect you from rejection, but it also suffocates your soul. Every time you laugh when you want to cry, every time you stay silent when you want to speak, every time you dilute your fire to make yourself easier to handle, you lose a piece of yourself. And soon, the person you were born to be, the fire, the storm, the river, becomes nothing more than a shadow. So I'll ask you this. Would you rather be fully alive and misunderstood, or comfortably dead inside, but socially accepted? Because here is the harsh reality. The world rewards masks, but your soul does not. To feel deeply is both a blessing and a burden. Most people move through life like stones skipping on water, touching moments lightly before moving on. But the sensitive soul is not a stone. The sensitive soul is the river itself. You don't skim the surface. You absorb. You carry. You remember when someone speaks a harsh word, others forget it by dinner. But you replay it again and again. Not because you want to, but because the echo lingers in your body like a bruise that won't fade. When you witness beauty, sunlight, breaking through clouds, music that pierces the soul, a fleeting smile, you don't just see it, you inhale it. It engraves itself into your memory, refusing to leave. When you feel sadness, it's not a passing mood, it is a storm that sweeps through your entire being. The Stoics warned us, life will bring suffering. Marcus Aurelius wrote, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your judgment of it. The Stoics tried to remind us that it is not events that wound us, but our interpretation. But here's the struggle for the sensitive. Separation between the event and the self feels impossible. When others shrug, you still carry. When others forget, you still remember. When others move on, you still ache. This is why sensitive souls often feel exhausted in a world that seems unaffected. They live 10 lives in one. They see what others miss. They sense the tremors in silence. They read emotions in the spaces between words. And society calls this weakness. You're too emotional. Why do you care so much? But let me tell you, this is not weakness. This is abundance, abundance of perception, abundance of awareness, abundance of life itself. Yes, you may burn faster than others, but that's because you are fire. Yes, you may drown in moments, but that's because you are ocean. Yes, you may ache longer, but that's because you are symphony, not static. Think of it this way. If life is a painting, most people see a sketch in black and white. You see the entire canvas, every shade, every color, every hidden brushstroke. Of course it feels heavier, but it is also infinitely richer. There is a price for this kind of depth, loneliness, because while others float on the surface, you sink into the abyss. And it's hard to find people willing to go down there with you. But let me ask you something. Would you trade your ocean for a puddle? Would you really prefer numbness over awareness? Would you give up your fire just to stop being called too much? The truth is, your depth is why you ache, but it's also why you truly live. Ordinary life becomes extraordinary through your eyes. And though the weight of depth is real, it is the same weight that anchors you to meaning. So if you've ever felt drained by your own heart, if you've ever wondered Why you feel more than others, remember this, your depth is not a curse. It's the evidence that you are alive in a world half asleep. Most sensitive souls carry a secret inner story. It whispers quietly but relentlessly. If I were less emotional, I would be loved. If I were less intense, people would stay. If I were less sensitive, I would finally belong. But let me tell you, this is not love. This is performance. Love that demands you amputate your soul is not love at all. It's a transaction. It's a bargain. Be less of yourself, and we will tolerate you. Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe." Nietzsche understood the brutal truth. Society rewards conformity, not individuality. The price of authenticity has always been rejection, and yet the price of performance is even worse, because every time you perform, you lose a piece of yourself. Every time you smile when you want to cry, you abandon your truth. Every time you stay silent to avoid discomfort, you abandon your voice. Every time you pretend, you betray yourself. Piece by piece, you disappear. Until one day you look in the mirror and wonder, where did I go? Who is this person smiling back at me? We live in a culture of performance. Social media thrives on it. Curated smiles, filtered lives, exaggerated success stories. But behind the mask of perfection lies exhaustion, anxiety, depression. The danger of performance is not just external, it's internal erosion. Every time you trade truth for applause, you bury your fire a little deeper, until eventually it's nothing more than a faint ember pretending to be ash. But let me tell you this, performance may win applause, but it will never give you belonging. Because true belonging cannot be bought with masks. It cannot be earned through applause. It can only exist where you are fully seen. And that is the paradox. The very thing you fear, being authentic, being real, being too much, is the only path to love that lasts. Anything else is just a hollow transaction. So let me ask you directly, how many more years are you willing to perform? How much longer are you willing to dilute your soul just to keep others comfortable? Because here's the truth. The people who demand your performance never loved you anyway. They loved the mask. And masks can never be loved, only applauded. The danger is this. When you start believing that the mask is who you are, you forget that underneath it lives a fire, a storm, a river. You forget that you were not born to be tolerated. You were born to be fully alive. And maybe the reason you're here watching this video is because some part of you is tired of performing, tired of shrinking, tired of amputating yourself piece by piece. If that's you, let me say it clearly. Your performance is not required here. Not in this space, not in this community, not in this life you are building. The world may not know how to hold your intensity, but here you are allowed to be too much. Because here, your fire is not a problem. It's proof that you are alive. Here lies the paradox. Most people never discover. The very thing that hurts you most is also your greatest gift. Your tears are not weakness. They are rivers that cleanse. Your intensity is not chaos. It is fire that awakens. Your sensitivity is not fragility. It is radar, an ability to detect what others miss. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." The sensitive soul has no choice but to face what others bury. You cannot numb yourself, even when you try. You cannot turn off the radar. And yes, it means you suffer more. But it also means You awaken sooner. Most people live behind walls of distraction, work, consumption, endless scrolling. They numb the pain until they feel nothing at all. But you feel. And because you feel, you see truths that others spend their lives avoiding. This gift is double-edged. Yes, you carry wounds more deeply. Yes, you bleed where others barely bruise. But you also see beauty in places they overlook. You taste life with an intensity that others can't comprehend. Imagine two people walking through a forest. One sees trees, the other hears the quiet pulse of the earth, feels the rhythm of wind in the leaves, notices how each beam of sunlight turns dust into glitter. Same forest, different depth. That is the gift of sensitivity. The world might call you too much, but in truth you are too alive. So the next time your tears fall too easily, remember, rivers don't apologize for flowing, and you shouldn't apologize for feeling. The hardest truth is this: authenticity is lonely. When you stop performing, when you remove the masks, not everyone will stay. Friends may fade, relationships may fracture. People who loved the mask may not love the face, and it hurts, because you realize much of what you thought was connection was actually performance. What you thought was love was often conditional tolerance. Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, "The crowd is untruth." He meant that truth cannot survive in mass approval. Truth often requires you to step away from the crowd, even if it means walking alone, and this loneliness is brutal. The silence after masks fall can feel unbearable. You question yourself. Am I making a mistake? Should I go back? But here's the paradox: loneliness is also purification. It clears the space. It removes the shallow companions so that the rare ones, the ones who can hold your depth without fear, can finally appear. These rare souls may be few, but they are worth more than 1,000 shallow relationships. Because when you meet them, you won't have to perform, you won't have to shrink. You'll realize you never were too much. You were simply waiting for someone who could hold the fire without burning. Better to be alone in truth than surrounded in lies. Better to be misunderstood in authenticity than celebrated in disguise. So if you find yourself lonely in your authenticity, remember, this loneliness is not punishment. It is proof you are on the path of truth. Becoming whole is not a sudden explosion. It is not a single breakthrough moment. It is a slow unveiling, a process of reclaiming every piece of yourself that you abandoned along the way. It looks like saying no when your body screams no. It looks like resting without apology. It looks like speaking truth even when your voice shakes. It looks like refusing to dilute your words just to be understood. Each time you do this, a piece of your energy returns. Each time you honor your truth, resentment fades. Each time you reclaim your fire, you come back home to yourself. The Stoics called this living in accordance with nature. They believed that peace comes when we stop fighting our own design. And your nature is not numbness. Your nature is not silence. Your nature is not performance. Your nature is depth. Becoming whole is not about becoming hard. It's not about killing your sensitivity. It's about embracing it fully. Recognizing that your sensitivity is not an obstacle, it's your compass. So take this in. Healing is not about becoming someone new. Healing is about remembering who you were before the world taught you to perform. Your depth is not just for suffering. It is also for beauty, because yes, you ache more than others, but you also love more. You see art differently. You hear music differently. You breathe moments so deeply that ordinary life becomes extraordinary. Albert Camus once wrote, In the midst of winter, I found there was within me an invincible summer. That invincible summer, burning inside you even in the darkest days, is the gift of depth. It's why you survive storms others could never endure. It's why you notice beauty in places others dismiss. Think about it. The same heart that feels despair so sharply is the heart that explodes in awe when touched by music. The same soul that suffers loneliness so deeply is the soul that cherishes intimacy with unmatched gratitude. Your sensitivity expands both sides of the spectrum. It makes the lows heavier, but the highs far more radiant. You live life turned all the way up. So don't let anyone convince you that sensitivity is weakness. Sensitivity is aliveness. Without it, the world is grey. With it, the world is blazing with colour. In the end, you are not too much. You are not broken. You are not fragile. You are a symphony in a culture of static, a wildfire in a forest of ashes, a river in a world afraid of drowning. And rivers are not meant to shrink. They are meant to flow. So let them misunderstand you. Let them call you intense. Let them walk away. Because one day, someone will look at you and whisper, "Thank you for not dimming your light. It gave me permission to shine." Until that day, stay close to yourself. Stay close to your truth. Stay close to the ones who feel as deeply as you do, and never forget, the world is starving for people who are alive. Your sensitivity, your depth, your fire, it is not too much. It is exactly what this numb culture desperately needs. So if you've ever been told you're too much, let these words sink in. You are not too much. You are exactly what the world has been starving for. If this message reached you, subscribe. Now, not for numbers, but to remind yourself that you are not alone. Like this video if it touched your heart. Share it with someone who needs to remember their depth. And in the comments, tell me, have you ever been called too much? Because your story matters. Your sensitivity matters. Your truth matters. And together we can remind the world of a forgotten truth. To feel deeply is not a curse. It is the beginning of awakening.